You could have just asked for it.
I'm Eduardo Salas. I go by he, they pronouns. I'm a queer Latino based out of LA. I do a lot of film work here. I'm originally from the Bay Area, California, from a city called Hayward, outside of Oakland. But I also grew up in between there, spent some time in Mexico growing up in Jalisco. I lived in Nicaragua for a while as well. And so I think a lot of my experiences when I come to film and writing specifically are part of those experiences of mine. And obviously what it means to be queer and Latino. And it seems kind of trite nowadays to use that as a moniker of what you do film for, but I think this film, for example, has been one thing that I've kind of used as a way to like get that one story out. You know, like if you had one thing to say, this is what you have to say.
Thanks for today.
Yeah, so I mean, so I was given 5 weeks. This was part of my thesis film at UCLA. I graduated in the film and television program. And so beginning of the quarter, right, COVID had just like wrecked the whole film industry. They
Mm.
said practically you have 5 weeks to start writing it, finish it, produce it, and find a way to do it before you can film. And so we had to do hurdles through COVID regulations. And so I had to keep that all in mind when it came to the location. I couldn't just choose any liquor store. I had to choose liquor stores that had owners who could comply to those rules. But the way I found this one in particular was I was actually just doing self-scouting like weeks on end until the fourth or fifth week or so of my final assignment. I was able to lock this one in on a whim, even though I chose it and I didn't quite like the outside area. I didn't typically envision it, but the more I talked to the owner behind that one before I left home, I decided to take a chance on this liquor store. I asked if they could actually like be open to filming it, and if anything, they said, the owner herself said that she's actually worked with other filmmakers before at their other location, which is like a different liquor store. Um, and so she's also worked with other filmmakers before. And I think what she liked for my pitch per se was that like no one had ever come to her to film at that specific location of hers in that liquor store in Boyle Heights. And so I think it was a two-way kind of pro situation where like I got this liquor store locked in, but she also got to have the reputation she felt she was needed in Boyle Heights as opposed to Linwood, and these other locations that were often filmed in feature-length films or other short film projects. So that's how I came across this liquor store in Boyle Heights. One thing I was able to do after that film was I had a documentary based off my mom, who's like a Latina based in the Bay Area, who owns her own hair salon. And I think she often tells me stories of how she misses back home, being in Mexico. I was able to screen at an art exhibit this past year, a few months ago. So that's pretty cool. I've been writing a lot more projects, grant writing a lot more. I've also been investing myself into a lot more community work. So like I work for a nonprofit, Latino Equality Alliance. And so I've taken on the helm of like making a lot of their own marketing narrative material. We're a nonprofit based out of Boyle Heights, and our main, which is funny enough, is actually where my film was filmed at, and based out of. And so it was nice going back to the community and actually giving back to the youth who serve and to the youth who I envisioned through my film. So since then, I've been uplifting community work. I've been traveling a lot. I got to speak at the House Representatives in Congress.
Mm.
Uh, and so I've been doing film work, yes, more writing, but I've also been doing a lot of advocacy work that I think has helped sustain my career as a filmmaker. Like it helped inform me what it means to be a filmmaker. Um, it's been a constant reminder of what it means to like why I'm doing these films in the first place and why they've had impact. Just because people see them, and I'm not just making creative work per se, but I'm also having to do like the administrative work behind it, right? Which is like what our queer Latino youth need nowadays in LA. So that's kind of what I've been up to since then. Thankfully enough, it's been at other festivals. It actually premiered at the Roxy, part of the Cinema SF in San Francisco. It also premiered at Outfest, thankfully. So it was part of their QT BIPOC section of the festival, part of their Latin Excellence block. So that was amazing. I have yet to make actual like proper trailer for it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But besides that, for the most part, like people have been asking for it, and I've sent them with what I've had. And it's been more of like an intimate project, I'd say. Like I made this film as something that wasn't necessarily like oh, like this is for the masses. This is for something that I'm gonna like use for my career per se. But all in all, like it's taken me places, and those festivals that it's also been in include the Orange County Latino Film Festival. It's premiered at the Liftoff as well Film Festival in New York.
Mm.
And so, and I think there's one in Atlanta. So it's had its kind of like smaller, intimate world nationwide tour so far.
¿Buscas a alguien?
No?
I don't want to spoil too much because then if I speak about too much, that's something that like I'm not gonna make happen, and it's just pressure on my own end. But it's I wanted to make it sort of the same perspective of this coming out situation, except I don't want it to be so much of a coming of age film as much as it is like a psychological thriller. I've always been in love with horror, and I kind of want to equate that idea of horror to the mother-son dynamic of what it means to have a queer son. But I also want to shift that perspective from the son to the mother. And so I'm currently working on a project that kind of like is, in short, like a fun queer Latino horror. That's also psychological. I'm looking for funding for Kurt. You know, I feel like sometimes I ask myself the same question. I wish people could give me more advice.
Mm.
But from everything I've learned so far, like the two rules I've learned is like when it comes to making your own stuff, like sure you can pass to other people and have, you know, their thoughts on it, or sure you can feel like you can't make your first film or something. At the end of the day, like you kind of have to embrace the rejection and embrace the risk of what it's gonna take to make a film. And it's almost like the only way you're gonna make it happen is if you just like wake up one day and you say like, oh, okay, like I failed yesterday, but tomorrow is the next day. Maybe I can make it tomorrow. Maybe I can make it this week, maybe this month. And I think I keeping that persistent mentality really helped me through it all. It helped that I even had my own structure through a film school to help me do that.
Mm.
But working on projects outside of that has also helped me realize too that like you don't need that school setting to even make it happen. You don't need a job to make it happen. The only thing you truly need is, you know, welcoming that rejection, welcoming the risk it's gonna take, and giving it time, you know, and being creative with the way you find money to make that happen. You can do so much with so little. Everyone always says that, you know, everyone's always like quoting a Sean Baker like iPhone film, which sure is like cool, you know, but it's also like very discouraging sometimes because it's also like not the realistic thing. People don't even have iPhones, people don't have much. Um, it all just starts at like asking for help, you know, asking for those who are around you. The strongest people do that, and it's those same people that are persistent, those same people who are not afraid to ask for help that can actually make it happen when they have nothing. And I think that's one thing that I'm still learning, but that I've learned is like the biggest thing when it comes to making your own stuff. So yeah.